Hey Blockheads, we've got a Patreon now. We would really appreciate your support to help us keep this podcast going. There's a link in the description below, so check it out. Now on to the episode. Coco Power Rangers! Hey, welcome to Creative Block. We're your host, Gene.
And V, we interview people in the animation industry about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on Twitter if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts.
And today with us, we have Lee Cree. Hey!
Hello!
That intro.
Hey!
I think we're going to get flagged for that within the first 5 seconds.
You get like a copyright strike from YouTube.
Immediately copyright strike. Because I was that pitch perfect, you know?
They're like, God damn it. We got to take it down.
Yeah. It was worth it. We will make no money off this video, but I had to give you the Power Rangers intro.
Thank you.
I had to.
Makes me so happy.
You're welcome. Yeah, I know what you like. Sorry to everyone about my microphone, but I'm having some technical issues. So it's not going to sound as crisp as usual, but hopefully that's not a big deal.
That's the only reason why people tune into this podcast, Gene. It's
People
your
like to
perfect
hear my voice.
Yeah.
People love to hear my voice. And no one
Sorry.
else.
Lee, you can just
Yeah.
blame it on Gene if the episode doesn't do well. It's all Gene's fault.
Yeah, that's fine. I think we should just start muting Clem, our editor, just mute everyone else and just have it be me from here on out. And let's see what happens to the views. If this episode does really well, then we'll know. We'll know what people are really here for. I'm just kidding. We got Lee Cree on the show. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm like actually nervous now.
course.
Oh my God.
Why? Is it because my voice is so overpoweringly?
Or is it because you have achieved incredible achievements? Yes, I used achieve twice in the same sentence. Like
Can you do
being a
that?
storyboard
Achievement.
revisionist, a storyboard artist, an animator at Titmouse on shows like Critical Role and Star Trek Lower Decks.
I mean, I guess so.
Is that why?
Is that why you're
nervous?
nervous?
I'm just nervous altogether.
This episode's a disaster already.
I'm always nervous.
Hey, tell us who you are and what you do from your words.
From my words. I'm Lee Cree. I am a 2D animator and a storyboard artist. Originally from New York, born in Hoboken, New Jersey, but then I moved to New York when I was 12, if I remember correctly. It's kind of hazy. And yeah, moved to California last year. Perfect timing, I know.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, been working in the industry for like over a year now. But before that, I was working
Yeah.
freelance for 2 years. So yeah. But now I'm
Else?
currently a revisionist on the new Critical Role adult animated series. So yeah.
That is
That's great.
cool.
Yeah, you kind of moved to LA at the worst possible time, probably,
Yeah, I did.
when everything is on fire and everyone is stuck inside. So talk about that, because I think that to me that's like a nightmare, is like moving to LA to pursue my dreams and then not even being able to go outside for a while. So how did you cope with that?
Oh man. So luckily, as I mentioned before, I was working like freelance from home like 2 years prior to moving out to California. So I was already used to like what my day-to-day would look like if I were to just work from home forever.
Right.
But when I moved out here, I was so ready to make friends and live that LA life dream, you know?
Yeah. Mhm.
And it
What's
just,
the LA life dream for you?
I don't know, get him brunch or something. That's what I
Getting brunch.
I love it.
Getting
This is
brunch.
no,
That
for real
LA
though. It's
shit.
mimosas, right? It's just like
Yeah.
you go to LA to get mimosas.
The first time
Yeah,
I got
that's-
brunch in LA was literally like earlier this month.
No.
And was it everything you dreamed it would be?
Yes, it was bougie. It was it was expensive for no reason, and it was a perfect day. So I got
Yeah,
Yeah,
everything.
that's LA brunch.
Was it
That's how it
also
is.
was the weather like ridiculously really? But I guess like in New York it gets also really really hot.
Oh yeah,
So.
it gets hot.
Yeah, it gets humid over there. But in
It's
California,
arguably worse.
yeah, it is. It's awful, but I kind of miss it, you know? Like I like to know that I'm on fire, whereas in California, I can't tell if I'm on fire.
You'll know. You'll know when you're on fire
When
You'll know
everything
because
when
we
else.
have fires here
you're just a
constantly.
husk of a person because you're so dehydrated.
That's true.
If you don't drink like
Uh,
4 gallons of water.
yeah. And enough about the weather. We want to hear about your career and how you got your start. So let us know, or tell us like how little baby Lee got her start.
Oh, little baby Lee, as my mom would like to say, I was drawing since like I was born, apparently.
Holy shit.
That's what my mom likes to say.
That's a new one. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't believe her though. So
Okay, your mom's a liar. Got it.
no, she's not a liar. I think she's just really proud. So she just says
No,
that
that's
type of
good.
stuff.
Oh, that's really
Yeah,
sweet.
that's cute.
But yeah, baby Lee was always drawing, but I never like took art very seriously until like I was 9 years old. Yeah, 9 years
Oh,
old,
okay.
which was at a time where there was a lot going on in my life. My parents were like going through custody battles because like they're divorced and
Oh,
everything. So
yeah, that is rough.
my aunt would sometimes watch us and babysit us, and she knew we liked Pokemon.
Oh.
So there was a film festival going on in New York City called the Tribeca Film Festival. I'm pretty sure everybody knows about this. It's like a well-known film festival, and they were
Yeah,
showing
sure.
yeah. But yeah, they were showing this Japanese animated film called Brave Story, and
Ooh.
I think my aunt thought it was Pokemon, so she was like, "They'll like this,
Oh,
right?" Um, so she went to like we went to go see this movie, and this movie single-handedly like changed my life because it was like the first
oh
time
wow.
I saw another character that was like around my age see like their parents separating, because at that time and
Sure.
moment that was just something I was personally going through, and my peers didn't have like divorced parents, and media back in the day, whenever they portrayed like kids who were from quote unquote broken homes, which I don't like
Yeah.
how they say
Yeah.
that, but they often portrayed kids who come from homes like that as like troubled or angry or bullies and stuff, which is not wrong, but we really just wanted to like escape the reality that our parents were like being separated. So
Hmm.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. So that movie like single-handedly like changed my life because I it was the first time I felt like I could be the protagonist of a story, because everything else I felt like I just wasn't. Ooh woo.
Do you feel like that was like a pivotal moment then
Yeah, it was very much a
for
pivotal
you?
moment. I remember watching that movie and in my head clearly thinking, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Wow. Yeah,
Oh, that
yeah.
is so cool.
And I was like
I love hearing that.
9. So,
No, but that's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. I love hearing about those kinds of moments and like I used to ask it more often in earlier episodes, but I realized that not everyone has those.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love to hear that because I think that that's like really poignant and endearing when somebody when you watch something that like from then on shapes who you are and like what you do. Like that's great.
yeah,
Yeah.
I still love
Yeah.
Do
that
you feel like
movie.
after you saw the movie, after you saw, so is it Brave Story? Sorry, what was the name of the anime again?
Oh, it was called, the movie was called Brave Story, but I believe it was based off of like a novel or something.
Cool.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. After you watched that, so after you watched that movie, did you start like drawing more, or did that kind of like light up the motivation for you to like start drawing, or kind of what was your next step after that?
Oh, after I watched that movie, I sorry, I stopped drawing because I have to think.
Oh,
It's
that's
all
fine.
good. You don't have to draw. We are the one drawing.
I like this soft soup, man.
Ooh.
Ooh, woo. By the way, I'm looking up Brave Story, and this shit looks sick. I've never heard of this,
It's one of
and
it's one of the
it's great.
very like before isekai became what it is today. And for viewers who doesn't know what isekai is, it is a genre of
Yeah,
anime that roughly translates to being transported into another world. And
Mm,
nowadays, isekai is very much a generic, unfortunately,
yeah,
like type of story. It's easy to like see the tropes and the plots and the beats in
hmm
an isekai, but Brave Story is one of the like very like few early 2000s like isekai stories that kept
which
true
is
to the idea of a character going into a different world to learn a lesson, and
sure.
they come out as a better person, you know.
do you feel like Wizard of Oz is an isekai?
Yes, that's an isekai.
Yeah, technically, yes.
It is.
The
Amazing.
the first isekai story. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it is.
What's
I've
a I love I love it when people are like, "Is this an isekai?" It's like, yeah, it is.
Yeah, technically it is. Yeah, I've seen the book cover. I feel like that's pretty iconic, but it has a very distinct look to it. But the anime looks great. And what's interesting to me is that I'll have to check it out. But what's interesting to me is that like different generations will have different kind of pivotal anime or whatever to them, and we try to get guests of different age groups and different generations, and like uh, we haven't gotten enough younger artists on the show, I think, and I think it's interesting to me to see what kind of stuff was like crucial to younger artists in that young age, and the fact that I've never even heard this means that I might be getting old,
No,
but like.
you're not getting old. It's a very much like this film. You only probably saw it if you like went to film festival.
Well, maybe, but those kind of deep cuts are great. I love to hear people's deep cuts, the stuff that they like stumbled on, and then it like shaped, everything kind of for them going forward. Like that stuff's great because I think it creates a unique flavor to your work and everything, which you definitely have.
Aw, thank
But
you.
oh, of course. But yeah, tell us what kind of stuff were you involved, what artistic projects were you involved in after that, like through high school and kind of up until college?
Oh, okay. So to answer V's question, yes, after I watched that movie, I took art more seriously, and I immediately came to the conclusion I won't be able to like do Brave Story if I don't get good grades, because at that point I was like kind of average at school.
Hmm.
Um, so I just basically I I drew a lot, and I studied really hard because I knew that in order to like be good, I had to get the grades, and I just had to draw a lot. So I used to draw really bad comics from printer papers and Crayola markers and
Hell yeah.
Crayola crayons and stuff. But yeah, I remember just creating so much after that point, from elementary school all the way through like high school. We'll get to college later. But yeah, in
Sure,
middle
yeah, that's a
school,
different thing.
yeah, it's totally different. But in middle school, that's when I actually started to dive in a little bit more into writing. And
Hmm.
I had a friend who wanted to like be like a novelist, and we started writing stories and started sharing it with each other. And it soon like grew into like this whole entire thing where I like we would have these notebooks with chapters upon chapters of stories, and we would like hand our notebook off to one kid in one period, and then they would read it in second period and then hand it to the next person for third period, and then by the end
Whoa.
of the day, like our whole entire friend group had read the latest chapter of our stories,
That's
Wow.
so
and
cool. That is so very cool.
I had up to like 8 5-star notebook volumes of
Wow.
this particular story, which I believe are still underneath the stairs of my parents' house back in New York. And if they are, I have to burn them because they're cringe.
No, that's great. That kind of stuff is so fun to see, like the early works.
Dude,
Yeah.
Oda-san, he started
One
writing One Piece
Piece?
when he was in like sixth grade. So, you
Whoa.
know, yeah, he was just like,
There you
I
go.
love the pirate logo on Shonen Jump. I'm gonna write about pirates, and now it's the most popular
Boy,
thing
did he.
ever.
Boy, boy, has he. Like a 1,020 chapters or some shit at this point.
I I don't
but
know
Uh,
how
but
he does it. I just don't know.
he's
you
insane
know,
and very unhealthy.
you started just as early as he did, so
That's true.
there's value in these stories. I think yeah.
I hope so. Part of me wants to like go back and like workshop it because I think there's
Yeah.
something still there. But then I'm also kind of afraid because I know what taste I was in, like stuff I was into in middle
Oh,
school.
sure.
So I'm just like, will it just be cringy to read?
Yeah, of course it'll be cringy. It should be cringy. I feel
It,
like if
it
you go ahead, V.
No, I was gonna say it would probably be cringy for you, but well, here's the thing. Like you also like depending on which audience you wanna do your content for. Like if you wanna do content for an audience that is like the age you were when you wrote those stories, like that would be like
Mm,
perfect material. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
obviously, well, it depends. Like if now obviously if you want to make content for like adults, yeah, probably not those story, but for kids, probably good, you know?
yeah,
There's
that's
there's
true.
something, yeah. There's something kind of pure about going back to ideas you had as a kid because you tapped into a simplicity that um, you had in your life that like you don't as an adult, but like kids, they don't overthink things. So like it's something that's interesting to me thinking back on stuff that I liked as a kid too, because it's like, oh, I didn't question the plot details of this Flash cartoon or whatever the hell, or this anime, and now I'm like, I don't like this because the structure of the plot is an integral. It's like I know too much, and I think that if you have that kind of stuff written down, it's great. Like there might be something to it that you will come back to, and like, yeah, it'll be cringy, but you can be like, oh wait, this is kind of lit. Like you never know. You never know if there's something in there that's special.
Oh, that's true. Because I remember in that same bin with all those 5-star notebooks, there was like the comics I was talking about I made when I was like 9 years old. My mom actually kept all of them.
Of course she did.
God knows why she did.
That oh, 'cause that's what moms do. Moms keep old, embarrassing artwork from when you were a kid.
But
Oh.
yeah,
That's their job.
I remember like reading it, and I guess I was just enamored by all the thoughts that I had as a kid and how I just was willing to create and just have fun and make up the strangest concepts. Like there was this one particular comic series I wrote. It was called Ruby Shine. And essentially it was basically what Steven Universe is in terms of the gemstones, but
Oh, okay.
way prior to Steven Universe ever becoming a thing. Um, I was like, wow, interesting how there are some ideas that like even as a kid like are similar to stuff now,
Sure.
but they're just
Honestly,
executed differently.
yeah, dude, like when you read a lot of fanfics, like a lot of the main characters' names are like gemstones and stuff. I think gemstones have been in like the psyche of
Yeah,
like
Of course,
middle
yeah.
school writers for
yeah. It's like, what's your gemstone say about your personality?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Nice.
Yeah. It's like it's cool because there's so many and they all have like an identity, and so it makes total sense to me why
It's like
like a
universal.
recurring thing. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
because it's so easy to attach personality to those things. And I think Rebecca was just sort of the first to get a show based on that, or
Yeah.
at least, yeah, the first to push through the development pipeline.
Yeah, to
Um,
acknowledge it too. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah, well, I know there have been other people who have done similar ideas and just didn't get to that point, but like,
Yeah, because I
Right. True.
remember like maybe this is showing, I mean, I'm only 24, but like this is just showing, I guess, my age to even younger people listening to this. Like
sure.
Trolls was a Saturday morning cartoon where like it was basically these girls and they were all gemstones. And I thought that
Mm.
was really cool, but not many people remember that
No, I don't remember
show.
that.
It was I forgot what channel it was on. It was either on the CW, it was probably CW or like 4Kids.
Hmm.
Those were like Saturday morning cartoon shows where I actively woke up at 6 a.m. to make sure I watched Yu-Gi-Oh at 8 a.m.
Hell yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which Yu-Gi-Oh? Original
It was
Yu-Gi-Oh?
the original Yu-Gi-Oh, and then they
Okay.
only went up to GX. Yeah, they went up
Yeah.
only to GX because I think at that point, 4Kids, something happened to 4Kids where it just, like Thanos snapped into like disappearance.
Yeah.
And then there was just the CW where it had Trolls, uh, what was it? Lunatics Unleashed, which was a weird,
Oh my God.
dark and gritty Looney Tunes
Yeah, the
action
gritty Looney
show.
Tunes. I
Oh
remember
my God.
that.
I never, okay, the only thing I know about this show is a promo picture, which I always thought was completely insane.
It's
Did you watch
real.
the show?
They
I
What,
look
how
cool as
is,
hell. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
It was amazing, but also weird because it was just like Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny are like edgelords.
but
Yeah.
are they like, do they get emotional? Like, does like Bugs Bunny say things like, this is my city kind of thing?
Yeah,
I
it
think
was
they
it
did.
it was very like the best way I can describe it is like it was very much an action show that was trying to be very melodramatic, but you
Oh my
knew
God.
that the characters were like Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny.
Hey, like this is so insane. I love this. This sounds like a fever dream, honestly. Like a
Yeah, it really feels like a fever
It
dream.
was a fever
Like,
dream.
yeah, like I lived through that and it feels like a fever dream.
It
that
was,
is so
but I
funny.
loved every minute of it.
What other kind of stuff do you remember that was like really impactful on you? It doesn't have to just be TV either.
Um, that unfortunately, most of it is TV. So,
Yeah, that's fine. Why is that unfortunate? Yeah, that's
oh,
that's totally valid.
I say it's unfortunate because like my not only were my parents divorced, but they were also like working a lot. So I stayed
Yeah,
home a lot as a kid. So a lot of my
yeah.
experiences in just like learning about the world and stuff was through TV. So
Oh yeah, I'm the same way.
Relatable.
yeah.
Yeah, very relatable. Hey, what do you think we're drawing?
We've drawn some Supermans.
Some Supermans and a
Um,
Speedo.
some Supermans. We can't seem
Like,
to agree on what Superman looks like.
yeah, like Lee, you're the expert on Superman. Does he have a speedo? What does it look like? I
No, I'm
completely
not.
forget.
Depends.
I'm not an expert. That was an
I don't
accident. That
know.
was an accident, guys, I swear.
I don't know. I think you might
Listen,
be the expert here.
I did not anticipate the amount of, I'll say, replies I would get when I drew that picture.
You are the Superman expert now. Um, other than Superman, yeah, what other kind of stuff do you remember being a big influence on you?
So thankfully my parents were also like nerds. So things like Star Trek, uh, Marvel, DC, Star
That's cool.
Wars, um,
Mm.
yeah, that type of stuff has always been a part of my life. Like, I don't know why my dad did this, but I specifically remember watching one of the prequel Star Wars prequel films a lot of times in the theater. And I'm pretty sure I
That's
shouldn't have
so
been
Okay.
cool.
watching that movie because it was rated PG-13 or something. And I was
They're pretty tame.
like 10. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I just remember
They're pretty
watching it a
tame.
lot.
Yeah, I remember. Sorry, for talking about myself, but yeah, like I remember like when I was like I think 10 or 11, my dad saw that Alien, the first movie, was
Yeah.
playing on TV, and he was like, girls, come over, this is the best movie. We literally come to the living room, sit in front of the TV when the alien like shoots out of the person's tummy. I was traumatized. I had nightmares for like
You're like, oh my God. No, my parents, yeah, my parents, you know what? I feel like I'm blessed because now I'm thinking about it. My parents did their justice in like making me watch good movies because my mom is a huge fan of like classic Hollywood movies and films.
oh,
So
that's good.
like Vincent Price, Judy Garland, Audrey Hepburn. So yeah, I also old kung fu movies, like Hong Kong kung
Ooh.
Oh,
fu
that is
movies.
so cool.
My mom
Yeah.
loved that. I remember when I was my mom used to live at Rockaway Beach up in Queens, New York. I
Hmm.
was watching a film called Challenge Soccer, and it was the coolest.
Yeah.
It was the
That movie's
coolest
so good.
movie
That
I
ever.
movie fucking rips.
This movie is so good because not only is it like has really good kung fu fights, like
Yeah.
really crazy over the top special
It's like
effects.
Dragon Ball shit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the story is also like really
Yeah.
like good, and then you have like good emotional beats, and it's really funny. It's got
it's
like
it,
everything.
yeah, it's just the perfect package. I remember watching that film and being like, "Wow, this is amazing." And then through like kung fu films, I can't talk. Kung fu films, that's when I got introduced to like Jackie Chan films,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
are also amazing because I just enjoy like the action and the comedy, like the balance act between the two.
Yeah.
And as a storyboard artist, I always watch Jackie Chan films because he just does an amazing job of incorporating the environment with the choreography of the fight.
Yeah. Hmm.
And
Yes.
it's just
Yes.
shot so nicely and it reads so well. And there's no real shaky cam. I hate fight sequences where it's super close and just shaky cam. I can't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I'm very,
Agreed.
very,
1,000%.
oh
Yes.
man. But yeah, my parents were nice enough to make me cultured, I guess. Oh, and Jerry Lewis films. I love
Ooh.
Jerry Lewis films, like Cinderella Man
Okay.
and stuff. Yeah. It's so weird to talk about it
Cool.
out loud.
What is it about Jerry Lewis movies that you like?
I just I think it was just the comedy. I really enjoyed the
Sure.
slapstick comedy of like Jerry Lewis films. And Cinderella Man was always my favorite because surprise surprise, like it's a gender swap of Cinderella, like the classic story. And
Hmm.
something about those types of stories always enamored me, like the what's that Cinderella film with Brandy in it? I forgot.
Oh God.
Like that it's the one where like everybody in the whole entire cast is like a person of color, and
Yeah.
I love that movie because I just thought to myself, oh my goodness, that could be me. Or like,
What?
Cinderella doesn't have to be a woman and that type of stuff. I've
Oh,
always been
that's great.
enamored by those types of stories where it breaks the status
Yes.
quo, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. That's a nice
Yeah.
Superman booty.
That was just called Cinderella. It was just called Cinderella, but yeah, it was just the cast of people of color.
Yeah, I forgot like what year it came out. It was like in the 90s or something, maybe.
97. I'm looking at, yeah, 97.
Okay, so I was only one at that time, but I remember watching this movie
Oh,
a little bit.
probably a little later.
I remember watching it later, but that year I was only 1 years old.
It imprinted on you at
I could
1 year old.
I was imprinted. But yeah, I just love movies that have good comedy, good action. That's really generic, but
No, I think that's like I
No, I
think
think that's great.
that's yeah, that's because like there's like different type of movies. Like you could have there's like so many genres, and I feel like action comedy is a very specific genre.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
and there's not much of it. At least in like animation. Now I'm thinking about it, I'm just like, yeah,
No, there
it
isn't.
it like
It's
either
a shame.
leans more towards one way or the other. But
100%, yeah. It's very hard to pull off. It's very, very hard. I think not a lot of people are able to pull it off consistently, like honestly in any kind of media, like on the long on a long scale. I honestly believe one of the only medium I can think of is One Piece, in terms of like consistently funny
Mm,
and consistently a lot of action, you know, like
Yeah.
that's true.
anything that goes like for a long time, like Dragon Ball, eventually was just like
It just
just
became
action.
action.
It just became
Yeah,
action, or like,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, wait, which one of you has watched Bobobo Bo 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 Bo?
Oh my god,
D.
I am so
Damn it!
happy. I am so
Listen,
happy. Finally,
Ah!
Bobobo fan rises.
my younger sister and I, when we were, so this was like, I want to say 2010, around 2010. This is right before like I moved to New York. My younger sister and I discovered the show Bobobo Bo 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 with many bows
Yeah.
in it on Toonami.
Bobobo-bo-bo-bo.
And I don't know what it was about that show, but I loved it.
It's insane. It's honestly, in my opinion, it's basically the Monty Python of anime.
it,
That's literally what it
it
is.
really
Yeah, I mean, I
is.
can agree with that.
You know, it's like super nerdy, because like the thing, I think the problem with Bobobo is that like you need to know so much about shonen tropes to
Yeah,
really
to understand it.
yeah, because all of it is just riffing on all the and also not just shonen tropes, but also a lot of like Japanese culture. Like I'm not saying
Yeah.
that I'm not an expert on Japanese culture, but I feel like before I watched Bobobo, I had read so much manga that I would say I would get like probably 70% of the jokes. I wouldn't say like I don't think I know enough about Japanese culture to get all the jokes, but yeah, you and also it's just so random and
It's very
stupid.
random, and
Yeah.
that's another anime where like I guess influenced my type of comedy because I don't know, there's just something about it. But you're right, a lot of Bobo is dependent on you have reading every single shonen manga in existence up until that point. But as a
Yeah.
kid, I don't know what it was. It just enticed me more to read shonen manga.
Yeah,
So
I think there's also just like
yeah.
that. I don't know. There's like joyful energy of someone just like you can tell that the guy is like having fun. Like you can
Yeah,
tell
they're
that
having fun.
he's
It's like a
yeah.
Gintama, like which is purely like a
Yeah, I was gonna
comedy.
say.
It's like a comedy show, but you probably won't understand the jokes if you don't really understand tropes in anime and manga, like Japanese culture. But something about that makes me want to like dive in more into the culture and the
For
tropes
sure.
anyway, so that
Uh,
when I watch it again, I'm like, I get the joke now.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think there's like a part of it that's like, ooh, you're gonna be part of like a secret club. Kind of like, I mean, a lot of Monty Python fans kind of feel that way. It's kind of like, ooh, we're part of this like absurd humor kind of club, you know? Like it's like very
Yeah,
specific. Like
definitely.
it's very nerdy. It's a very nerdy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that type of stuff.
Yeah, you have to get it. What was did you go to art school?
I did go to art school, so after high school, obviously. I went to a very small private art college called Montserrat College of Art in Beverly, Massachusetts. That's about like 40 minutes away from like Boston.
Hmm.
But yeah, I went there for 3.5 years because in high school, I was taking college courses starting my sophomore year or junior. No, sophomore year is my sophomore year of high school. I started taking college courses, and by the time I had graduated, I had enough college credits from AP courses and actual like community college courses to skip a whole entire semester once I
Oh, nice.
actually got into college. So yeah, I studied there for 3.5 years. I majored in animation and interactive design. I minored in art history, although I should have done creative writing, but I love history so much, and I just wanted to write a 15-page paper about animation.
Interesting. Okay.
Nice. Was animation part of were you able to write about animation in your art history class?
Yes, so the requirement to get the minor was you had to write a 15 to 20-page paper about anything you wanted. And
Whoa.
What? That is cool.
I mean, it was cool for me because I could do anything I wanted. And at the time, I think other students who were like in the same minor as me didn't realize that when they meant anything, they literally meant anything. So I remember the day when we were presenting our ideas, I step up to the plate and I have a whole entire presentation and it's titled Animation Propaganda in World War II. And then
Wow.
and the subtitle is like America, Germany, and Russia. Oh, it was World War II, the Cold War. And
That is so interesting.
and I basically broke down how animation was used as propaganda in America to South America,
Ooh.
Russia, and Germany, and how like they all sort of played in on the same like tropes and stuff, and how they were able to master, you know, influencing, the public into their cause,
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote.
Oh, that's really, really cool. And I
That's
think that is
fascinating.
very, very true. I think like that you wrote a paper on that is really awesome because no matter what kind of story you're telling, like when I say you is universal like it
Yeah,
may
yeah.
be like through a novel, through like a religion, through an animation or a movie or like, I don't know, a video game. Like it is like kind of somehow tied to some form of propaganda.
Oh yeah, and I mean, obviously, the biggest contender in that paper was Disney.
Mm-hmm.
I did
Mhm.
a whole entire deep dive of certain Disney cartoons or shorts that were used at during that time to promote like the Allies and beat the Nazis and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And I remember presenting it, and everybody in my class, all their jaws were like open, and they were like, "Wait, is this is this real?" I was like, "Yeah, like I did the research."
What did they
And
do? Was it just like boring, like standard?
yeah, it was
Picasso.
yeah, like Picasso and Van Gogh and the reality of
Snore.
his like mental health and stuff like that. Or somebody, there was only
Boring.
one other project that I really liked, and somebody did like the perception of the color blue and how
Oh,
Whoa.
throughout
that's cool.
like art history, how blue is used in certain areas and cultures, specifically like with military and organizations and
Mm-hmm.
institutions, blue is used a lot. So I thought that was really, really cool. But everybody else was sort of like, I'm gonna dissect the Mona Lisa for the 50th time.
Oh God,
Um,
yeah. Just thinking about it is making me yawn. Like, I love that you went completely in a different direction because yeah, like how many more essays do we need about the fucking Mona Lisa
we
or Van
we
Gogh?
we don't. And my art history professor was like so excited about it to the point where she like called me to the side
Oh,
after class and she was just like, I really want you to do this, but you only have 20 pages. And I feel like what you just presented was a whole entire textbook. And I was like, maybe.
oh no.
So I can
Oh, you
only
overshot it a
I
little bit.
overshot it. So she was like, maybe we just focus on the Disney. But if you really, I really think you could just make this a whole entire book. I'm like, maybe in
That is so
another part of my
cool.
life. And I got an A
She
plus on that paper. So
yes.
Nice.
She
I mean,
wanted you
I
to
would
be
hope.
like, yeah, she wanted to like write the foreword when your book gets published.
Yeah.
she's like, that
That's
was
I've
my
always
awesome.
student.
believed in this.
And I won an award for that paper too, because
Oh
Whoa.
shit. Yeah, for
the
real?
school has like an awards like thing every year for like the graduating students, and I won the art history award because of that paper, and I was like, hell yeah,
Dang.
I did it.
Yeah,
That's great.
dude. Yeah, that's awesome. That is so
What kind
cool.
of what kind of art projects were you working on while you were in school? Anything like notable?
Not really. So I say that I majored in animation at my school, but
Mm-hmm.
the animation program was still very new.
Mm.
About like 4 years old by the time I had enrolled. So the school was primarily fine arts and gallery focused. So there wasn't really any like outstanding like projects that I did. If anything, I had more of headaches than a fun time when
No.
it came to that. But there was one particular class that I remember, and it was a board game design class. And that was really fun where we got to make our own board game. And I actually still have it.
Oh, yeah, that
Oh,
is cool.
that's so cool. That is
yeah,
awesome.
it was called So You Think You Could Be a Lawyer or something like that. And the
That's
point of the
great.
game was it was sort of like Cards Against Humanity style, where like you pick a card, like two people pick a card, and they have to defend their client to the judge,
That's
That's so
interesting.
and the
funny.
and
I
the
love
judge
that.
judge determines who wins the case. So it's very like quick, snappy rounds, and you have to like think on your feet on like a pleading case or defense or like objection. So basically, Ace Attorney.
That's like Ace Attorney. Yeah, you made the
Yeah,
Ace Attorney board game. That's crazy.
that's so funny. That's so great. I love that.
I love those kinds of games because I like arguing. But like there's one that I like to play that I forget what it's called, but it's like you pick categories of I think I played it with you, V, where you
Yeah.
like yeah, you pick like categories of movie stuff. So it's like props, characters, scenes, something. And then like one person is a director and everyone else is just trying to name a movie that has both of the two cards, like stuff that's in both of the two cards. So it'll be like a scene in a bar and like a character with a limp or something, and you're like, oh, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I know it's like you got to just like name, and then the director is like deciding and judging, like, I don't know. And I remember we got in. I think V was there for this. We got into it. Me and Ari, who's been on the show, where there was a card that said a supernatural thing, and he said Spider-Man, and we were like, that's not supernatural, dog. That's just like superheroes. He's like, no, but it's like supernatural. But it's like supernatural, and it's like that's not supernatural. But
He gets
yeah,
bit by a
that kind of stuff
spider.
is really fun. Yeah, yeah. No, the science. There's a science to it.
It's more science
But
fiction.
yeah, but yeah, that sounds great. And then what happened after you graduated college?
So, oh man, I was depressed. But before I graduated
Yeah, that sounds about
college,
right.
before I graduated college, in my last semester, I think the summer of my last semester, I interned at Sesame Workshop that makes Sesame Street, good old puppets. And that was a fun
Nice.
time. And
That sounds
then
great.
I graduated and I was extremely depressed because that was not, like I didn't know what to do next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Since like 9 years old, I had the idea of like if I just do good at school, I can like, do the thing I want to do. And then I reached
Mm,
the end of like the school route
Relatable.
and I'm like,
Mhm.
what do I do next? What do I do?
That's very relatable. Honestly, like I think this is like a sentiment that I wish was more discussed, but I do relate to that a lot because it's like you think you're gonna go to school, you think there's like this path that like paves its way to a job, and
Yeah,
it's like that's not really how it works.
it's
It's
not
like
at all.
yeah, when I was in school, when I was in Gobelin, like some of my peers were getting freelance gigs and I wasn't. And I was just like, holy shit, like, how am I going to get a job? Like, all these people already have jobs. They're already like working freelance. And it's like,
yeah.
and then it's like, it kind of breaks the reality that you were like, kind of like, that you bought into, right? It's like, you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, and school, get a job. And it's like, no.
No, it's so much harder than that. And I went to a school that was more fine arts, mainly because like cost wise, my parents could not afford to send me to Cal Arts or send me to like
Sure.
SVA or something like that. And even then, the school that I did go to, I was on scholarship money and I had to keep my grades up. So I didn't have much of a social life either in college. Only talked to like maybe five people from college still, but only one
Mm-hmm.
on a regular basis. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and during college, like the animation department, it was very new and they were more focused on games and 3D and not TV animation or 2D animation in general. Because at that point, they just believed that 2D was dead. And the only way you can like
Yeah.
work in animation is if you work in like games or you just do, Toy Story and stuff. And that wasn't me. No shade to games or 3D, but it wasn't what I fell in love with. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I love like Tangled. I love Toy Story. I love video games. I play Animal Crossing every day. That's the only game I really play, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. And it wasn't
Yeah.
until I took a storyboard class in my final year of college by a storyboard artist who worked on the show Archer and also the Netflix live action show The Get Down. And
Hmm.
that was my first ever introduction to like storyboarding. And I was like, wait, you mean I can draw and tell stories at the same time? I just don't have to like animate somebody else's stories. And it sort of just opened my mind. So
Hmm.
I sort of like I took that class and I just did everything I could to keep talking to the professor and like, build a relationship with them and hear about their experience and all that type of stuff. And it worked in the long run because now we're friends and now I work in animation. But
Right.
yeah, my school like didn't really have the connections to like set me up to find freelance or let alone a full-time job in the industry. That was something I had to do on my own. Even the internship I got at Sesame Street, I ended up one way or another doing that on my own. My school never helped me with that as much as they want to claim, I guess, credit to it.
Yeah, that's how it be.
That's how it be sometimes. But I do wish
That's
that,
how it be.
like, I wish they would just teach these young artists that getting getting the job is a job in itself, and there's more to
Hmm.
life than just grades. So,
Hmm.
mm.
Yeah, the grades barely even matter in the long term.
They don't matter at all.
No, they really don't.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna ask you for your grade, even if you wanted to get a visa, because that's like one of the that's usually one of the asterisks that I bring up on the show is like,
Hmm.
Hmm.
well, if you are like a foreigner and you want to get into American animation industry, you better get your diploma. But like nobody cares about the grades on your diploma, not even the USCIS. So
Yeah.
They
Just a
just
slip
want
of
to see the
paper, really.
paper. They want to
yeah,
see you have a
yeah, yeah.
paper.
Graduated, good.
Good. You can work here now. That's on.
Yeah. Just focus on your work more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was also the other thing about my school. Like the professors, because they knew I wanted to work in TV animation, would often like, I don't want to say put me down, but kind of put me down in a weird way where they were
Yeah.
essentially saying you'll never get a job if you draw this type of
Oh.
stuff. But
Interesting.
yeah, I was actively like watching animation at that time as like I did for the rest of like the rest of my life. Um, but I like at that time, and it was a Voltron was super big, Legendary Defender on Netflix, and I saw
Interesting.
that, and I was like, draw anime.
Yeah.
So,
Wait, so you were saying that your teacher was telling you not to draw anime?
oh, I've had tons of teachers straight up tell me in front of my face that if I draw anime, I would never get a job. I had a life drawing teacher who took my sketchbook while I was getting a drink on break and openly like mocked and humiliated my stuff because I drew
What the
anime
fuck?
in front of the whole entire class, and they were like
I don't know.
also they were joining in, and I was like, this isn't cool. Like so for
What
most
the
of my
fuck?
so for most of my life, as an artist, I've always been told to not draw anime.
I think that's like I don't know why this is such a take. I mean, I'm hoping that within the next 5 to 10 years, this take will have completely like vanished
I think it
because
has to, yeah.
I mean, I hope
I'm
it
I'm not
does,
sure.
but like I do like because when I was in school, I went through the same thing. Like I had like an anime, like not exactly the same thing as you, like because I was like I kind of internalized that criticism, so I didn't even dare draw anime because that was just like oh no, bad. But like we had an animation teacher telling us like, well, animation in Japan. They don't know what they do because they animate on thirds. And it's like,
What?
no, yeah, and it's just like, but the animation looks great. Like, who cares whether
Who
it's on
cares?
twos or thirds?
If it
I
works,
don't
it
know,
works.
man. I don't
Yeah,
know
the
what's the.
gatekeeping. Fuck.
I think it's just like, I don't know. It's just the egos. Like the West is just like, no way, the East can be better than us. I think that's what
Yeah,
it is.
that's what
That's
it
the
is.
only. Yeah, that's the only thing I can
I
think.
I do think it's like a weird like Westerners just having a what is it called? Superiority complex or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
I remember I was taking a short film class in college, and I was presenting the storyboards, and these were in like my sketchbook, and I just drew however I needed to draw to just get the idea across. So it was anime. Go figure. And the teacher, at the end of like me presenting my storyboards, the first thing that she said was, I mean, this is just my only critique, but is it gonna look like that? Is it gonna look
Oh my
anime?
God.
And in my head, I was just like, is that a problem? Is it an issue? And that's why I asked her, like, kind of it will. Is that a problem? And she said, well, I just mean if you're gonna make it anime, then I think you should just, take a page from like Miyazaki and Satoshi Kon, which
What?
understandably, those are like, they are rightfully like really great filmmakers, but they're probably the only few Japanese filmmakers recognized by like the Western institutions of like Hollywood and stuff.
Very
So,
true. And yeah, so maddening. Oh man. Oh boy, oh boy. I can't believe we're still going through this. This is crazy.
yeah, that was in 2016.
That's crazy.
That's
That's crazy that
crazy.
as recently as that, there are still teachers that, hey, teachers, if you're out there, stop that. Like
Yes,
that's
please stop
that's
telling kids
insane.
to do that. I only had one teacher in my whole entire life who explained to me like why I couldn't draw anime in class. And it was my APR teacher in high school. And there was one day I legitimately asked him, why can't I draw anime for like homework
Mm-hmm.
assignments and stuff? And he broke it down very simply to the objective of the art course is to teach you the fundamentals, which is figure drawing, perspective, color theory, yada, yada, yada. My job is to make you a strong artist that is versatile so that you can adapt to any style. So if and
Right.
when you draw anime, nobody can contest your skills or say that you lack fundamentals. And I took that at like 15, 16 years old, and I was like, oh, that's why I need to learn how to draw the human body better. Okay. And then I just went
Because
about my day.
and that's the truth. It's like I think at the end of the day, like every single artist needs to like know the foundations. Like no matter
Yeah.
what you want to do, if you want to do cartoons, if you want to do anime, if you want to do
Yeah.
experimental, at the end of the day, if you're very, very tight on your fundamentals, like life drawing, etc., it's just going to make you a faster artist, and you're just going to be able to like finish your thesis film or your short that you want to submit to a
Yeah.
festival, or just be a faster storyboard artist. But at the end of the day, the style you choose as an artist does not matter. You should be able to draw whatever the hell
Yeah.
you want to draw.
And
Yeah, it's your own work.
arguably, yeah, it's your own work. And arguably, like, if you're working in TV animation, you are going to be changing your style a lot, or you're going to be adapting to different
Exactly.
styles a lot. That's just the nature of the
100%.
job. Like, I went from Star Trek Lower Decks to Critical Role. Like,
100%. Yeah.
those are two very different styles of
Yeah.
art.
Exactly.
What was your first actual like full-time animation job?
That was at Nickelodeon. I mean, well, I was an
I do
intern
want
at
you to
Sesame
talk about
Street.
it. You're going to talk about the Nickelodeon trainee program, right?
Yeah, that was
Yeah, let's talk about
technically,
that.
yeah, that was technically like my first like full-time job where I'm not an intern. Um,
Hmm.
so last year I was a storyboard trainee for the Nickelodeon artist program
Hmm.
and was robbed of my experience by
Yeah.
the Panini.
Is that what we're calling it now?
I'm calling it the panini because you don't know, like, what if,
I,
like, by the time this episode comes out, like, it's all over and
People are gonna be
like
like, "Did I miss something? Was there like a panini incident?"
it's
that
like
is so funny.
it's like saying the word like simp on Twitch. Like, what if it becomes that? Like, we're not allowed to say it anymore.
Yeah, we can't say.
We
Wait,
can't
hold
say
on. Simp? You can't say simp anymore?
on Twitch. You're not allowed to.
Oh
Wait,
boy,
can you?
that sounds like a simp move to me.
I have to hold on. I am so sad right now. I love
Do you
man.
have to go and
Can
change
you?
some comments, V?
No, I'm just like
You're like, hold on, I
no.
gotta go edit some things.
I'm never gonna. No, sorry. I'm like, does that make me a boomer if I still say simp? Like what?
No,
Like
No.
no. I guess what happened was like when the word became about, I guess a lot of people were using it on like Twitch and stuff to the point where I guess it caused like an outrage. I don't know. You just can't like actively say the word simp on stream on Twitch.
Sounds like a bunch of simps were upset. So
I guess so. Like maybe it was demeaning to actual simps. I don't really
whatever.
so,
know.
Fuck 'em.
can you say thirsty instead of simping? I
Yeah,
don't know.
you can say thirsty, but you can't say the word simp.
For now,
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, we'll go. Okay, this is gonna delve into reply all type of content. So we'll keep going about your experience
Yeah.
as an intern and trainee, because
Leave a comment below if you still
If you still
use
say simp.
in your day-to-day life. Yeah.
What would you like to hear? Like how it happened or like the day to
well,
day or
exactly. I would love to know what the day to day was like. Kind of what, like, kind of how, and also how did you apply for it? Was there any kind of like hoops to jump through in order to get that position? And
um,
also, what's the difference between an intern and a trainee?
oh man, there were so many freaking hoops. I'm just gonna say it right now. The interview process of the Nickelodeon artist program is the most intensive interview process you will ever experience
It's rough.
in your
Yeah.
whole entire life. I went through
Really?
like more than 10 interviews.
Oh my God.
For real? That sounds kind of like Jeff, though. Jeff Trammell when he was on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
because
sounds
he did the
similar.
writing. He did the
Yeah,
writing
yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
one.
Yeah.
Similar.
So, backtrack.
Jesus.
The difference between intern and trainee. So, at Nickelodeon, the trainees are strictly like creative roles, and the interns are like are a mix of creative and production people.
Mhm.
Also, the pay is a little bit different, and usually the interns are students, whereas the trainees are recent grads or people who are just like skilled enough to like make it through the interviews and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Mm.
But outside of that, they very much are like kind of similar where we have like a supervisor or a manager who we report to. We get assigned to a production and we work on that production for however long we'll be on the program, whether it's an internship or the trainee program. And hopefully, which the studio tries to do its best at, is to place you on a production after you finish. So those are like the real differences. They're very like minute, but at the end of the day, the production interns or the social media interns or just interns in general at Nickelodeon are not so different from the trainees, except for trainees are strictly creative roles. They're not production. There's no production trainee. I don't think
Yeah.
I've never heard of a production trainee before.
No, because I mean
Yeah.
it's so low paying, unfortunately, already that I
Yeah,
feel like it's like you want me to do this work for no money, or it's like
yeah,
I don't know.
it's
I
like
would hope there isn't anything like that.
it's just it doesn't make any sense. But how did I
Yeah.
apply? Well, in 2019, I came to California for the very first time in July of that year. And towards the end of my trip, which was like 2 weeks long, I had made the
Hmm.
decision of like I have to move here because this is where I need to be if I want to work in TV animation.
Yeah.
So I told my older sister that, who also wanted to move to California, and we like
Mm.
we both agreed like we're gonna work our asses off to like save money and move out to California together. So as I went back to New York, I had caught wind that there was a Nick artist trainee program. And I thought to myself, well, I should just give this a shot. And I only had about 5 days left to bust out a storyboard.
Holy shit. Wait, hold on. Say that again. How many days?
5.
All right. Well, just a note to the audience. This is a really short amount of time.
This is like, don't do this. Do not be me. I had no clue that the submission period was a month long. If you ever get a test, a storyboard test, and the person tells you you have 24 hours or less than a week, actually less than 2 weeks to do it, don't take it.
Yeah.
Unless, well, it depends. Okay, I'll just put like a little asterisk on this. It's like, it depends how long the test is. If someone gives you one single page of script and they tell you have a week, that's fair. If they give you like friggin' 7 pages, no way, Jose. You know,
there's
like,
no way that's happening.
Never.
No.
I personally, my and I'll get off my soapbox really soon.
No, it's
but
fine.
Never take a storyboard test that is longer than 2 pages. Like that.
Yeah. Don't do that. I've done my fair share of 3 pages and only having a week, and no,
2 pages of script is the absolute maximum. There's no reason why a showrunner should ask for more than 2 pages of script to be a storyboard test. Like that smells fishy. But back to you and your 5 days.
Yeah, so I came back to New York, caught wind of this thing. I only had 5 days left to put something together. So I said, all right, I'm going to put a storyboard together. Ended up making a storyboard for a personal project, thinking that this is kind of good enough, but also maybe it's not good enough. And there was also like a portfolio section where you submitted additional pieces, but I thought I was just supposed to upload like pieces that helps the people reviewing my stuff to understand what's going on in the storyboard. So I proceeded to just upload art of my OCs and stuff.
Sure.
Okay, that's really cute though. I love that. I actually really love that.
Yeah, and I think also at that time I had like put out a tweet saying like, am I about to apply to the Nickelodeon artist trainee program? And Chris Pianka, who was an alumni from my school, he like DM'd me. He was like, "Do you need help?" Because he was an intern at Nickelodeon.
Yeah, it's when I first met him, actually.
Yeah, so I was like, "Yes, like, do you have any tips and tricks?" So he like broke down like how to like answer the short questions and stuff. And I'll forever thank Chris for that. Absolute sweetheart.
Yeah, Chris is great. Shout out to Chris.
Shout out to Chris. If you're listening to this, hope you're doing well.
He might be. I don't know. Yeah, I haven't talked to Chris in a while. I hope you're doing well, Chris.
Let's get you on the show, Chris.
Yeah, let's get Chris on the show. Let's just stop this show now. Let's get Chris on the show.
Let's just get Chris and like have a party. But
like, hey guys.
Yeah, he like helped me break down the short answers. I finished my storyboards, which were extremely rough. Like they were not clean. They were very, very rough, but just enough information for you to like understand what's going on. And then like a handful of pictures of like thumbnails and OCs and stuff. And then I submitted it. And I thought to myself, this is not going to go anywhere. Fast forward to the start of September, early September, I was talking to a friend and we were like exchanging like phone numbers at that time of moment. And this person lived in Burbank. So I got a phone call from Burbank, assuming it was them. And I picked up the phone and they were like, hello, is this Lee? And I said, yeah, this is Lee. And the next words that came out of this person's mouth was, this is the Nickelodeon artist program. You've been selected to move to the quarterfinals. And I remember freezing and I nearly cried on the phone.
Oh, that's sweet.
And I was like, sorry, I'm about to cry, but keep going.
That's so good.
So we set up our next interview, which was a phone interview, and that went pretty well. And then they were like, we'll call you at the end of September to see if you made it to the semifinals or not. So in that time period, I was very, very anxious because I I didn't think I had a chance, and like just getting past the first round was enough for me. So I remember like my best friend and I, we went on a trip to Boston together, and I was just worried the whole entire time because I didn't know if I was gonna get it or not. And he was like, "Listen, whether you get it or not, it's still like pretty amazing that Nickelodeon called you. Like you still did an amazing job." And he was right. Um, Come to find out, after I came back to from that trip, I had went to New York Comic Con that next week, and I want to say the day before, it was like 1 or 2 days before I went to Comic Con. They called me, and I was like, "This is it. This is where I die, guy." And they said, "You made it to the semifinals," and I was like, "Oh my god, I made it to
Holy,
the semifinals!"
this is like a shonen, dude. It's like you're
Yeah, that's really
battling
it.
every opponent, like at every level of the tower, where
Yeah,
you like.
and then I had another interview next week.
Yeah. Oh, God, there's so many interviews. Can I like chime in with
Go on.
the other side of it? Because so like I mean I worked at Nick for a while and I was actually a part of the judging process for a couple of years at least.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because like they get so many portfolios.
Oh
I feel
yeah.
like this is valuable information to get to for anybody that's looking to apply. They get a lot of portfolios,
Hmm.
and just to sift through them, they ask for help from artists that work at Nick, just professionals that are working at Nick, just to try to narrow down the pool. And so you have to go on top of the work you're already doing.
Hmm.
They ask you to have to go through like tons and tons of portfolios and just kind of like rate them and figure out what the best fit would be. And from there, they come up with a pool of people. I don't know how many it ends up being, but then they go through those interviews and so it's like it's just slowly like just whittling down the people who would be a good fit. 'Cause, and let me tell you, I've done that. There's a ton of portfolios that are so underwhelming, and it's just like it feels like people just threw some stuff together and put it up, and submitted it, which is fair, but somebody has to go through it.
Hmm.
And that's mostly to say that like if you're applying to this thing, you better put your best work at the
Yeah.
front and you have to make sure that everything is exactly formatted the way they asked. Like you have to do everything right and then some because we're looking at a lot. Like the people who are judging those are looking at a ton, and it's the stuff that is really good stands out.
Oh
Um,
yes, you are 100% right. Like I think for my year, and I only know this because they told us this, for the year I applied, they had over 1,000 submissions that year,
yeah,
and they whittled
Mhm.
it down to 25, and then they whittled
yeah,
it down
yeah,
to 16, and then they whittled it down to 8 people, and then they got
yeah,
the final five.
That
Um,
yeah.
actually
It
makes a lot of
takes,
sense because it's
yeah.
like that's very similar to the selection for Gobelin for people who like take the entrance exam for Gobelin because I talk to teachers who go through the portfolios and it's extremely similar. It's like you have 800 application, you only have like 25 people that they can take in. So they actually, what they told me is like they look at all the portfolios and they put into three piles. They're
Hmm.
like, nope, never pile. They're like,
yeah.
maybe, and they're like, looks real good pile. So you want to
Hmm.
try to get in the looks real good pile.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
you
I
really
think
want that. And I think at least what I learned from that whole entire interviewing experience, I think what made me stand out in at least in my submission was solid drawing, and then
Yes.
solid
Yes.
like staging and cinematography knowledge, and then also putting a story that was just original out there. Because when I was in the final interviews, a lot of the people were asking me questions about what the actual story was about inside my, like, on the storyboards. And they were like, "I feel like you're like a fan of anime and all this stuff, and I just want to know more." I was like, "Yeah, I am."
That's
So
really
yeah,
cool. Yeah, that's great.
it's a bit of a gamble because you don't know who you're. because like yeah, from there they just kind of pick whoever were the judges for the original batch, and then yeah, we do these like series of interviews, and they would just ask us uh yeah, I mean the thing is like for the people coming in, and then you probably experienced this, you walk into a room and it's like six artists that all just like
Yeah,
turn to look at you, and
it's
it's
so
like, tell us why you
intimidating.
deserve, yeah, tell us why you deserve to be here. And it's like I can't imagine how nerve-wracking it is. And a lot of this is more of my beef with the process, but a lot of artists are awkward people,
Hmm.
and it was always I always would like take on the duty of just making the candidate feel a little bit less like overwhelmed, like just try to talk to them like people, because
Yeah.
the judges would be like, why do you think you would be a good fit for Nickelodeon? It's like all these like loaded questions, like what makes your work stand out? And I'd just be like, what's your favorite anime? Like I just want to know, like I want to know like who the person is, more than these like ridiculous questions that no one ever has to answer in a job interview. I don't know.
I think
It's
I'm gonna be the devil's advocate on this one, but I think it kind of makes sense that people would ask like these kind of like scary questions, because it's also like, the studio is also trying to hire someone like from a corporate standpoint, right? Like I'm
Mm.
talking purely business. They're looking at you like, wow, you've already demonstrated you can draw and tell stories. Now, can you also be a business person and sell yourself? Because if you can do that, hey, maybe you're a good
yeah,
the
but
candidate for a show later on. I'm just,
Mm.
but that's so much. That's asking so
I
much of
know,
people who just need,
I
like,
know.
these are people that are out of school and they just want to find a job. And to me, that's like, can we take it easy? Like, can we just
I
hire people for
mm.
their work first? I don't know. Maybe Lee can chime in
I'm
on
trying
that.
to
Extreme.
I'm trying to see because I'm
I'm
I'm like in the middle.
Oh, okay.
I'm also saying like I'm talking purely business here, but like from a purely business standpoint is like you want to try to hire your next like Alex Hirsch or your next like
That's
I don't
true.
know, Thurup, so you're kind of trying to look for that like story. I don't know, not
But it's a trainee. Well, anyway, that's
I
a
don't know.
whole
I'm
other.
just talking out of my ass. I could this You
I think it's
listener
asking
who
too
is
much.
listening to this, do not listen to me. Listen only to
Do not listen.
the main
I
editor.
think that it's asking too much. That's my position, because I think that these are trainee positions, and to expect people to be the next Alex Hirsch and present that in an interview where they're already overwhelmed is like, and after six interviews or whatever, it's like that's unfair and that's insane.
Yeah.
I think that people should just have their work and should just kind of show their personality, and if they're easy to work with, and then it's not even like you're guaranteed a job beyond that, and nobody that's
Mm.
applying for a job has to go through that kind of scrutiny really.
That's true.
And because it's like I've gotten jobs with barely an interview before, or people will do a test and then get the job
That's
that
so
pays
true.
better than the artist program. So it's like I get the whittling down process, but I think the interviews can be a little brutal.
Yeah, they're
And
they're very intense. Like in the final interviews, I do 3 panel interviews in a day, 3 to 4 in a day.
What?
man.
So
That's
yeah,
crazy. That's
like
insane.
we
Yeah, that's
would
what I'm
each
saying. Like,
we would each get like a number, or like they would give us an order. Like today's order is going to be Lee so and so, this person, that person, this, and then we all go in order, and we would do like 1 in the morning, like 1 or 2 in the morning, and then like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, but they were very much like only maybe 10 minutes long, and they were always back to back. Um,
Mm.
but I mean, I hear both of your guys' like argument, because I do think that it is a little bit much to have like these really fresh new emerging artists have to do a very intense interview process, and I'm only used to it because I've done job interviews before. So
sure.
I'm just good at reading like the room, I guess, when it comes to who's
Hmm.
in the room. Because I remember in particular in one of the final panel interviews, clearly these people were like executives, like corporate people. Like
Ooh.
just the air around them, I immediately picked
Yeah.
up. These people are more corporate. I have to behave a certain way.
I
So I
see.
remember them asking a question along the lines of, what's a bad work experience that you've had and how did you handle it? and personally, this is actually the truth. I don't believe in bad work experiences. I just think of them as challenging ones, and they're still good because I learned something at the end of the day. But I finessed it in a way where I explained to them that I don't believe in bad job experiences. Yes, sometimes
That's
irritating,
great.
sometimes frustrating, but the challenge at the end of the day taught me something new so that the next time around, I know how to handle the situation. And you
Dude,
have
you're
to do,
really good.
yeah,
You're
like
so
you
That's
good
have
at
awesome.
this.
you have to do
You're
stuff like that.
no, that is so good. No, that is so good. And like, no, for real. This is really great. This is like the $1 million question. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but like if you don't have experience doing that, especially as like an artist who, artists tend to be a little bit more introverted and, they don't do that type of stuff unless they like work retail. I don't know. If you don't have that experience is what I'm saying. It's hard to like sell yourself in those aspects. Um, but yeah, I do understand like wanting to make sure this person is like the right fit, but also they're young and they're just trying their best. So you should also be, you can hold it back a little bit. We can have a happy medium here. You don't have to put too much pressure on
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Totally.
Yeah, I think
that's how the interview process went for me. It was just very brutal.
No, that's really good to
yeah.
hear. I love that you're giving all this information, and I think that's like really important and great. And it's just like, um, unfortunately, that's the reality of the interview process for more than just Nickelodeon. Like
Yeah.
Disney has an equally intensive interview process. I don't know about the other studios, but definitely it's something that you like that artists need to be like aware of at least, so
Yeah,
Yeah.
or at least like just be good at like reading people, um, which is easier said than done. But trust me, like if you do take the time to like socialize and get to know like industry pros and all that type of stuff, you'll start to pick up like the different personalities and who you can be, a little bit more casual with, or who you have to be a little bit more formal with. Because that was
Definitely.
that was my case when I was interviewed for Star Trek Lower Decks. I did not test for that show. They interviewed me, and I came into that interview preparing to be like formal because it was the supervising director and the line producer. And
Mhm.
then I immediately saw the both of them were wearing anime shirts, and I was like, never mind, we're switching.
Yeah, switching gears.
We're
I think
switching
it's
gears
like I think
right
that's
now.
something really good that you're mentioning right now is that I think, I mean, at least for me, coming from France to LA to Hollywood, I was like, what is the difference between like a supervising director or an executive producer and a studio executive? Like for me, it's
Hmm.
like there's executive or director in all these titles. I don't understand the difference. And there is a difference.
Yeah.
So really fast, like studio executive, you're dealing with corporate. Uh, Executive producer, probably a showrunner. So very
Yeah.
different people. Executive producer is this is not for you, Lee, because you know that stuff, but it's for like the audience, for
It's for
whoever's
the
listening.
audience. It's good
Yeah.
info.
Executive producer is like a synonym for showrunner. I mean, you can have multiple executive producers on the show, but that means they're both showrunners. And yeah, studio executive or like VP or like, like that kind of title. That's when you're
Hmm.
dealing with corporate.
Yeah. Also, they just dress
Yeah.
differently. I mean, not all of them do this, but I when I see what people wear, I just immediately think to myself, they're this type of person. That might be the New Yorker in me. That might be the New Yorker.
I mean, yeah, you got to get a read on people. I think that's just human nature. Um,
Yeah, but that was the
uh,
interview process. Did you want to hear about my day to day of being a trainee?
100%. Yeah.
Okay, so gosh, so a day to day of being a Nickelodeon storyboard artist trainee. Once you're assigned to a production, which takes about like 30 days into it because there's a whole guild like protocol thing where they have to wait 30 days before they put you on an actual production. I don't know. I don't know. So usually a day to day would be like I would come in, And in the morning, I would work on the social media post that I had to do because as a trainee, in order to promote you online, you have to do like these weekly posts on their Instagram, on the Nick Artist Instagram. So I decided to do a comic about my journey from childhood up until the moment I became a Nick trainee. And it was more like the weird anecdotes
Mm-hmm.
of my life.
Yeah, anecdote. Yeah.
Anecdote of my life. I don't know words. Yeah, the weird like moments in my life where I remember them being weird, but in the long run, it made sense in the end and somehow led me to this point of my life. So I come in, I grab a croissant in the cafe, go upstairs, and I spent like the first like couple hours of the morning like roughing out my comic that I was gonna do. And then by the time it was like close around lunch, I would get my assignment from my mentor, who was the co-EP for Rugrats, because I was assigned on Rugrats.
Nice.
And
Hmm.
yeah, I'd get my assignment for however long the deadline was, and I would just like work. And then also in between that, between working and then doing a weekly social media post, I was also making illustrations for an art book for the Nick Artist program, because that's also another thing that we do. And then we had meet and greets with people within the studio.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it was a lot of juggling different things at once. And I go home at 6 o'clock and crash because I did so much in a day. And then the panini hit, and then I just sat in
The
my chair.
panini.
That's really cool, though. I love that they did do the work of setting you up with all like these meet and greets and like people to get to know you, and maybe they like that's a chance for them to follow your social media and then see
Yeah,
what are you up to and get like have
it
like
always felt awkward though, because like everybody in the studio in Nickelodeon they're always excited about the new trainees and the interns too. But
Mhm.
because the trainee program has like a curriculum, it's really stupid, but they're not necessarily allowed to approach us.
Oh,
Like,
interesting.
yeah,
Like in
Yeah,
so
a way,
I've heard
maybe.
that.
yeah, I remember one time. So I met, so at a mixer that Nickelodeon was holding, I met with an EP who I was a fan of. I was a fan of their work, and we got to chat for like a little bit, and then we like crossed paths again the next day at work, and I was like, would you mind like having lunch sometime? Like, because in my head I thought this is what I do, right? This is how I socialize, right?
Mhm.
And they said yes. And me being super excited that like, oh my goodness, I'm accomplishing one of my goals of being more social and like getting to know like uh jobs that like I particularly want to move up into, executive producer, duh. And like I go to my manager, I went to my manager all excited, like, look at this thing I did. Like I connected with a person and we're gonna have lunch, and they seemed really nice and they gave me advice about this type of thing. And I did not know that this particular person I was supposed to meet in a meet and greet down the line, because they don't tell
So,
us. They don't tell us this type of stuff. It just happens upon us pretty
Mhm.
much.
mhm.
And so I ended up having to cancel the lunch. And I had to explain to them, it's like, it's not that I don't want lunch with you, but apparently there's a whole entire like curriculum thing that I have to adhere to. And they were like, no, it's okay. I understand. Like, I don't want to like step on
Yeah,
anybody's toes. And I didn't want to step on
yeah, they know.
any toes either. But it didn't matter in the end, because when we got quarantined and started working from home, the meet and greet situation became more difficult because technology, Zoom calls, all that type of stuff.
Yeah,
And then people surprisingly just became more busy because bringing a whole entire animation production into your household ruins like your whole entire flow.
yup.
Um, so in the end, I ended up reaching out back to this EP, and I was like, "Hey, I know there's like a curriculum and everything, but it seems like it's still, I don't know what's going on, but I would still really like to like just chat with you for like 40 minutes, 30 minutes, I don't care. And we did, and it ended really well. But yeah, it's stuff like that where the meet and greets were like great, but sometimes it was a bit frustrating because we wanted to talk to people and but everybody else wanted to talk to us, but because of the curriculum that was placed, we weren't really allowed to like go so far into talking with other people, if that makes any sense. Like we had
That's
to
so
wait.
that is so interesting. This is some of the things I like, like honestly, from the story you're telling, like I would have done exactly the same things you have done. Like this is the kind of thing that's like corporate has invisible rules that you
Yeah.
cannot know. You like
Yeah.
how it's crazy that they would expect anyone to know these invisible rules. Unfortunately, corporate world has a billion of those, and they're all different from a studio to another. So
Yeah. That's
My
what they
my
are.
advice is my advice is not. I think that you should do whatever the hell you want that's going to help your career, and like ask for forgiveness, not permission, because there's been so many situations that I've been in or other people have been in where it's like, oh, you weren't supposed to do that. It's like, well, it got me to where I needed to be and you weren't doing anything for me. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that like ultimately you have your fate in your hands, and I think the people who obviously you don't want to piss anyone off, you don't want to overstep, but a lot of the time if you just do a thing that you already got the connection, you already made that friendship, whatever it may be, whatever situation it may be, and like let them figure out what to do with that, like let them figure out what if it was the right if it was within the boundaries or whatever, because that EP now knows you. Now you have a little bit more of a connection than you would have if it was just a boring like standard meet and greet, and that kind of stuff means more. Those connections mean more than very sterile, curated
Yeah.
meetings
I
with a
Like
agree.
capital M.
Yeah.
like there was a meet I had a meet and greet with my mentor, and it was just really weird because by the time this meet and greet happened, he knew me. Like
Right.
he like knew me as a person and like knew my sense of humor, knew my interest and all that stuff. So it was
Yeah, that's
just
great.
weird to be like, "Hi, my name is Lee Cree," and I am like it just feels very uncomfortable and very superficial at that point.
How? Oh, who is in the meet and greet? Like, cause is it just a one on one, or like what do those like specific interaction look like?
So it's all of the trainees basically interviewing one to like sometimes like four people at once.
I see.
So it's like, yeah, it's like a panel, I guess. It's like really weird, but sometimes it'd be one person. Most of the times it's like two to three people. And at the start of it, you start with the alumni of the program and then you work your way up to like
Oh,
executive people. But
Mm.
because of the work from home situation, a lot of it got shuffled around, a lot of rescheduling happened, and a lot of cancellations happened. So in
Mm.
the end, I ended up doing more on my own outside of the program. Like I'd be like, "Hey, we follow each other on Twitter. Do you mind if I like ask
yeah.
you a few questions about
Yeah.
like that type of stuff?" And
Honestly, that's great. Yeah, 100%.
yeah,
That's what you should do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna always be there's always gonna be something that holds you back from, you know, there's always going to be some weird expectations, and it happens even when you're like a working professional. Like there's going to be things
Oh
that
yeah.
you're not supposed to do.
oh
Oh
yeah,
um like you're not supposed to do prop design, you're not supposed to do X, Y, and Z. There's like always these weird limitations, and there's reasons for them, but I think that you do what you got to do to set yourself apart, and sometimes that means, breaking the rules a little bit, but
oh
like,
man, I broke them.
yeah,
I mean,
but
in
here
a
you
way,
are.
in a very lawful, good way. Like you didn't go
I didn't
Lawful
say break
good.
laws. Laws are one thing,
yeah.
but rules are stupid. A lot of the time rules are stupid and they're based in somebody else that wants to benefit from, restricting how you do things, or so it's just like obviously just be smart about it. But yeah, I there's been so many situations where I went around some limitation, and then turns out like, oh, that was what I was supposed to do the whole time, because trying to do it the right way was keeping me down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you just got to be smart, think outside the box.
I was
Yeah.
gonna ask, Lee. I realized that you said you started the trainee program, and the pandemic hit the panini. But
The penny.
you worked on so many shows. How long is the trainee program, and how did you get to
Ooh.
work on all these shows?
Oh, the training program was 6 months long. The writing program is 9 months long.
Wait, hold
Um,
on. Did you do both of these, or do you
no,
just
no, no,
happen
no.
to know about both?
I,
Okay.
I just I just know that information because at the end of the trainee program, the writer trainees were also in our like farewell party Zoom party thingy. And they're like,
Okay.
"Oh, where are you going?" And they're like, "Oh, we have another 3 months." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Okay.
Like what? So the artist program is only 6 months long. And during that, I was assigned to Rugrats. And then towards the end of the program, so like towards like April, May, they start shopping you around on other productions as well as like to other studios. Like they openly tell you like if you want to look outside Nickelodeon, you can do that because sometimes the timing is just not right. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, they were shopping me around, and there were a couple of productions at the time that were starting up, but they were primarily preschool shows. And I mean,
Mm.
don't get me wrong, I watch Bubba Guppies all the time.
Mhm.
Those songs slap, but
Yeah.
but preschool is just something I don't necessarily like want to work in. I've worked on Sesame Street, and I was just like, it's cool, but I feel like I want to do more. And maybe later in my life, I might change my mind and work in preschool. Who's to say?
Who's
So
to say?
I tested for a preschool show at Nickelodeon, passed the test. They offered me the job, but ultimately I said no. And I felt bad because they gave me a
Yeah.
test and everything. And like my mentor recommended me. And I was just like, listen, it's
Yeah,
just,
but that happens
No,
too.
you do what you got to do. Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think that's great. You got experience just like taking the test, and like at the end of the day, you took the freaking test. Like you worked for the show already, so
Yeah.
Yeah, I
not
was like, I
bad.
took the test. But
Yeah.
yeah, I already had freelance like on the back burner, like ready to go just in case I would go a period of time without work. So it was to animate on like an indie pilot called Port by the Sea. Yeah, Port by the Sea. I did like one or two shots in between
Mm.
that. And I want to say like a couple weeks after the artist program ended, Titmouse reached out to me and they were like, "We want to interview you for a revisionist position on Star Trek Lower Decks." And they had sent me like stuff from the show. I think they sent me like the first episode or something. And I was like, "Oh, okay. I don't know. I never thought I'd work in adult animation. I'm not sure about this. The style kind of looks like Family Guy, but all right, I'll
Yeah.
give it a go." I watched the episode.
Mm.
I I laughed out loud and I was like, "This is a really funny show." And also,
Hmm.
I'm a Star Trek fan. So
Yeah. That's
um,
great.
yeah, so I said, okay, I'll take the interview. Let's see how this goes. Went through the interview. We were on for like over an hour. It was supposed to be only 30 minutes long, but we ended up like just talking for a while about anime and stuff. It was just a good feeling and a good vibe. And
Yeah.
then they hired me.
That's awesome.
Nice. That's really
Yeah,
great.
they hired me on Lower Decks, and then I started on Lower Decks August of 2020 to the end of January, but actually towards October, November,
Mm-hmm.
Critical Role
Ooh.
had emailed me, and they were like, "Hello, would you be interested in doing like freelance for Critical Role?" And in my
Mm-hmm.
head, I thought, wait, isn't it that one Kickstarter show that like got $11 million or something like that? And I had to like
What?
research because at that time, I think there were like multiple D&D shows in development
Yeah.
because there's also like the Adventure Zone and Magic the Gathering or something. Um, so I was confused as to like which one it was, and then I found out it was Critical Role, and I was like, oh, I know about Critical Role because uh, I had an RA in college who would like D&D and stuff, and they were like fans of the show. So I thought, okay, I know enough about this show at least to work on it. So I accepted the freelance. They had me do cleanup revisions the first time around. And I remember opening that storyboard file and immediately thinking, oh God, I don't think I can work on this show. This is out of, I'm not in the league of this show.
Oh.
It was so amazing. And these were the roughs. These rough storyboards were so amazing that I felt like I was doing a crime by cleaning them up.
Honestly, though, isn't that the best feeling? Like when you're like on a show and you're like, oh, I think I might be able to do it, but I'm not sure. You know, like
Yeah,
that's like the best.
Yeah, it's a
like,
challenge.
it's a challenge.
yeah.
But yeah, so I finished that one around like November, towards like the middle of November because it was around Thanksgiving or something of the sort. And I want to say a week or so after that, they contacted me again and they're like, hey, do you want to do pages? Like freelance for like do pages? I was like, are you sure? I guess I guess so, because it was towards the end of Lower Deck season 2, so my workload wasn't a lot. So I picked up the freelance and thought, this is fine. This is just a one-time thing. I cleaned up their boards. Now I'm just gonna do like a couple pages for them for an episode. It was like towards the end of the episode, like mostly dialogue and all that stuff, like wrapping up the loose ends of whatever story was happening and going on. So I said yes. And they're like, great, the kickoff meeting is this and this day. And I was like, wait, do I have to join? Oh no. So I joined the kickoff meeting, and there I meet Alicia, who was previously on Rise of TMNT, Sungjin, who was on Korra, Travis, who voices Grog, Sam, who voices Scanlan, and I was just like, God, I don't think I should be here. I really don't think I should be here. And they kick me off and all that stuff. And they're like, yeah, have the thumbnails hand in by this day. We'll have a rough review. You'll get notes. And then you'll have this amount of time to do cleans. And then you hand them in. I was like, okay, fine. Okay. So while doing these thumbnails, I had immense imposter syndrome. Like, I don't know why they're asking me to do this. This is just not good. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know what's going on in the story. I don't even know what these characters look like. I mean, I did, but like I didn't understand like how they're constructed and everything. Um, I was just I felt like I was in over my head, like 12 feet deep in a pool, drowning. Like, okay, fine. So hand in the thumbnails, and we did the rough review, and then I waited like a week or something for them to give me notes because it took a while because it was a whole episode. And they're like, hey, here are your notes. You did great. Like there was not that many notes. I was like, you're lying. That's not true. I did a bad job. And then I actually looked through it, and yeah, a lot of the notes were just like hookup. Make sure the arm is cut off here. Like it was really small stuff. I was like, oh, I actually did a pretty decent job, I guess.
We are our own worst critics, yeah.
Yeah. So they're like, yeah, have the cleans done by this date, and yeah, you'll be fine. I was like, oh, cool, fine, awesome. So then they let me off and do my cleanup boards, and around Christmas, the production manager messaged me, and they were like, hey, would you be interested in a full-time position on Critical Role?
Nice.
And I said, as a revisionist, or like, what's going on? It's like, yeah, we want to hire you full time as a revisionist. And I thought, can I think about this? I actually told them, can I think about this? Because I'm not sure if I want to do this. The show is pretty big, and I don't know if I'm like capable of doing the show or working on it. So they gave me like a week to think about it, which I deeply appreciate that they did. And I ended up like talking to my mom and my stepdad about it. They're like, why won't you say yes? Like, isn't this something that you wanted to do? Isn't it like the people that are working on this show, people you admire and want to work with? And I said, yeah, but I'm afraid that I'm going to be so bad that they're going to fire me.
Oh, come on.
Nah.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. Yeah, I get
It's just super imposter syndrome in that moment. But my parents were, they let me down gently. And they're like, they wouldn't be asking you to work on their show if they didn't
it.
think
Yeah.
you were capable of doing it. And I thought about it. I was like,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. They wouldn't do that. So I accepted the job. And then, yeah, at the end of Lower Decks, I hopped right onto Critical Role and have been working on it since January of this year.
Oh, yeah. That's
Uh,
awesome.
Nice. That's so cool. I love that. That is so great.
I would love to hear how you deal with creative block and what it feels like to you.
Oh man, I haven't felt well serious creative block. I've only felt it twice in my life, which was when I graduated high school and when I graduated college. Um, because those were just
Yeah,
very
when
stressful.
you were going through it. Yeah, that
You know,
makes
I was
sense.
just going through it, and I had to produce high amounts of art that I was not necessarily invested in.
Mm-hmm.
But normally, for me, creative block, I don't get it that strongly that more. Maybe it's because I don't care anymore. But usually, if I find myself unable to draw or something, or just feel creative, I just don't force myself to draw, to be quite honest. Like I just don't
Very
force
good.
Yeah.
myself to be creative if my I just don't feel like being creative. Or if I don't feel like storyboarding, I just switch off to animating. Or if I don't feel like animating, I'll switch off to storyboarding. Or if I don't feel like doing animating or storyboarding, I'll switch off to writing. So I think personally for me, having different facets of creativity that are different enough to still make you feel creative, but not make you feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again, getting frustrated about that, is immensely important to me. What else? Going outside, breathing fresh air,
Yeah, all good stuff.
meeting friends. Like I think it's just important to, you know, live life and
100%.
take care of yourself. Like be kind to yourself, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That's how I usually get over creative blocks or potential ones. If I feel it creeping up, I'm like, maybe I should just read that manga that's been on my dresser for 4 months and I'll be okay. Yeah.
Very true.
That's how
Very
I deal
true.
with it. I just
No, that
step
makes yeah.
away.
I think those are great tips.
Yep.
We had some questions. Let's see from Twitter.
Oh, so many.
From at Bowtie Buns. How did you come across the idea of animating in Clip Studio Paint? Was it easy to transition your animation skills to it, or were there any challenges?
What led me to the decision was I hate Adobe. Uh,
Yeah.
my school only had the Adobe Creative Suite. Yeah, they only had that. Although most studios use like Toon Boom and stuff or TV Paint, but my school did not have the money to afford that, so they only had the Creative Suite. And I just really didn't like I didn't like the interface of Photoshop because it's not animator friendly, and I really disliked how clunky like well it's Animate now, but when it was Flash, how Flash slash Animate was at that time and point, and I feel like every time they make a new version, they make it less animator friendly. um, yeah, so the decision to use Clip Studio Paint was purely based on I don't like Adobe and I can't afford Harmony and I can't afford uh, TV Paint because I'm a poor college student. And
Yeah.
when I was about 19, Clip Studio Paint announced an animation feature, and I thought, oh, maybe this might work. And Clip Studio Paint is very, very affordable. Like I think if you don't catch it on a sale, it's like what, no more than $300 for like the maximum package, and it's an
I think it's cheaper
indefinite.
than that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's way cheaper, and then if you catch it on the sale, it's even more cheap. And it's
I
a
I yeah, I bought a tablet for I don't even know. It was like $100 or something, and it came with Clip Studio Paint.
That's
So that was a
amazing.
fucking bargain. Yeah. So
Yeah,
like they kind of hand it out, honestly.
yeah. I mean, it just works. But yeah. As for the second part of the question, was it hard to, what was the second part? Was it hard to translate?
Was it easy to transition your animation skills to CSP, or were there any challenges?
Oh, there was a ton of challenges, mainly because the whole entire interface in itself for Clip Studio Paint is just so different from everything else, like any other program. But
Yeah.
also, I was also trying to figure out my own animating style, to be quite honest, because I think most people who have seen my animation can clearly tell that I like the Sakuga like look.
Sure. Oh yeah.
But
Looks great.
it's like I like that, but I I also want to retain something that's like Disney in there. I don't know. So a lot yeah, a lot of it came down to just trial and error, and there were a ton of challenges of like, well, how do I optimize this program so that I can draw very efficiently and I can move things around as quickly as possible and get the result I want. And it just came down to, taking time to learn the program, learn the tools, learn their strengths and weaknesses, and you know, customizing it to your needs and optimizing it to your needs so that it's that maximum proficiency. But
That's any software, I think.
yeah,
That's
that's just,
just
yeah, it's any software. I just think like you just have to spend the time. There's no like magic brush or magic
right.
tool. You actually just have to learn how to use the
Yep.
program.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's like anything. It's like learning an instrument.
Mhm.
Everything can work if you put the effort in. From at Derek Malik Joe, what is your favorite art book that you constantly see yourself going back and finding inspiration in?
this might be something that people might think it's like out of left field, but I constantly go back to Uchida's how do you say it? No, wait, hold on, I have to look up his name because he's a painter. Uchida Masayasu. He's like a
Mm-hmm.
painter and a poet, and I own three of his books, and he basically just paints these Japanese like landscapes across like, the countryside, and it's very minimal, I guess you can say, because it's just blocks of color, but he has such a strong sense of composition, color design, um, color theory, that I just look at it all the time when I think of, man, I want to make stuff like this. I want to make worlds that feel lived in, like his work. Even though they're just flat pieces of color, they all feel like actual people live in there. So yeah, Uchida Masayasu's books is a constant go back to. I
Cool. Yeah.
frequent.
That is really great. That is so sweet.
From at Ferocia, guest and friend, former guest and friend. How do you balance work you do for work and work you do for yourself?
I have a planner.
Oh, do you really?
Yes, I have a planner
That's great.
where
Nice.
it breaks down my whole entire day in hour intervals. So
Holy shit. That's
yeah.
great.
So let's say I'll draw like a little arrow between like not like 7 and 8, and I'll put in there exercise, and then I'll go from 8 to 9 and do breakfast, emails, and that type of stuff. And then usually by the time it's like 10 a.m., I start doing like actual work. And I basically break up all the projects that I work in into small increments throughout my day. So like usually towards the end of the week, I've finished a bunch of work and I just have to hand it in, and get like notes on it. So that's generally how I balance work and then personal work. And then also there are just times where if I feel like I'm stuck on something, I'll just step away from it and then come back to it again eventually. Thankfully, I haven't done that too much or too long, but yeah, just know when to step away from things. And if you're like me, plan out every single hour of your day.
Hey, if that
Honestly,
works, I mean, that's
that's
crazy.
something that's like a tip that I've seen multiple times. So
Yeah.
you're
It
not
just works
alone
for
in it.
me.
No, yeah, if it works, then do it. I'm starting to think maybe I should do that because that sounds great. From at Dominic VD Hoff, what are some animated scenes that you still think about sometimes?
Ooh. Oh, actually, I read this question and I had to prepare it beforehand because I had an immediate like list of scenes. Um, so I think most people would assume since I'm an anime fan, I'm gonna pick like the stuff you see on like Sakuga or something.
Hmm.
Which, by the way, it's not wrong, but personally for me, what I look for in an animated scene are things that are like invisible in a sense. Like you don't realize how much work went into making that thing feel real, or like just like choices, it's certain choices in an animated scene that makes it work really well for that particular moment. So I'm gonna start off my. I picked three. I picked three. So my first one is episode 10 of an anime called Hyoka. There is a particular dialogue moment between the main character and his best friend, and they're walking down the street and they're talking about how they can help like the film club with their problem because they basically solve mysteries in the show even though they're in high school, whatever. And this whole entire dialogue is storyboarded so well, and it breaks the 180 rule very effectively without you noticing.
Hmm.
And the character acting is really, really nice, but also it's a very quiet, tense, dramatic moment between the two characters because this is the moment where you see their ideals are clashing, but they're not like fighting like shonen battles. They're just doing it through words, and the cinematography is showcasing it. So if you're ever watching Hyoka and you find that scene in episode 10, that is hands down one of my favorite animated scenes that I constantly think about and analyze because I don't know how they did it, and I want a storyboard like that. The second one is from an anime called Descending Stories, which is a historical drama, period drama, about the dying art of rakugo, which is the Japanese equivalent of like stand-up comedy in the Showa era. And it's in the very first episode when the main character, Yotaro, is doing his very first rakugo performance, and that whole entire sequence is incredibly beautiful and executed well and has so many layered moments and storytelling from the voice acting to the sound design to the storyboarding to the small character acting. Um, like every bit of Yotaro's performance in that particular episode is amazing, and I constantly think about it all the time and thinking, wow, this is. I wish I could storyboard like this again, and I wish I can animate
Hmm.
character acting like this. But not many people know about Descending Stories because it's not like a very bombastic anime. It's a historical piece, but if you enjoy storytelling and both visual and oral storytelling, it is definitely a highly recommended anime and one of my favorites. And then lastly, I have, I guess you can call it action. It's from Haikyuu in the most recent season
Hmm.
4 when Hinata does a perfect receive during his like during the match between Karasuno and Inarizaki, and when Aran like spikes and Hinata like finally gets a perfect receive. I absolutely love that whole entire episode because there are very quick, snappy character acting moments that if you're not paying attention, you're just probably like, wow, they're just moving so fast, but they're just it's so good. It's so good. It's
Yeah, that show
amazing.
looks great.
It's amazing. But yeah, those are some. Those are some.
Those are great. What are your goals and aspirations for your career and so on?
I think I mentioned like showrunner EP. I think that's like
Sure.
a given, but after that, I would really maybe like to teach.
Okay.
Yeah, mainly because I grew up in circumstances where the animation industry wasn't necessarily accessible to me, even though I lived in New York, which is one of the main hubs for animation. But yeah, I would love to either teach, whether it's like professionally or just like workshops and stuff for kids in similar situations that I grew up in where
Yeah.
they know they want to be creative, but they don't have the resources accessible to them to able to, you know, learn and hone their skills. And I
Yeah,
think offhandedly on Twitter, I said I wanted to open an animation cafe. So yeah,
that's great.
That's really cute.
I think those are great goals. Pay it forward.
yeah.
Well, I think that's the end of this creative block. Thanks to Lee for being our guest and sharing her story.
And thanks to your listeners. Follow us on Twitter. That's at Creative Block, creative without the vowels, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to my sister Clemens for editing the podcast.
Please subscribe to the channel if you love our content. I've been your host, Gene.
And I was V, keeping creative, and we'll see you next week.
Yay!
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.